This translation comes from the book The Holy Mount of Athos by Sotiris Kavas, who is an archaeologist, and he says about the monasteries and their treasures. From myth to history. In Mount Athos is the east side, the east of the three peninsulas in Chalkidiki, and they are through their own the blue waters of Aegean, between Thermaikos and Strimonikos called Bay. Its length is 60 kilometers, its width is 8 kilometers, and 8 till 12 kilometers, and the whole place is 360 square miles. In the beginning of the peninsula, we see that the whole soil is flat, with small valleys and small hills. But as we go further, we see a lot of mountains which become high and to the naked and very stiff Athos mountains, with the big, tall, and with his big tall place, which is over a hill and mountain, which is over 2,000 meters from the face of the sea. Around its name and its old history of the Athos, of this mountain, there are a lot of legends and traditions. The old people, the ancient people called him beach, the whole peninsula. The name Athos is it's certainly Hellenic word, and belonged to a Thracian giant, a giant from Thrace, and they say that he through all these mountains and against Poseidon in a conflict that they had during the ancient times between the gods and the giants. There is also another thing that we can say about it, is that the Poseidon beat and buried under the big rock this rebellion giant, the very fearsome in the very fearsome fight of the gigantic fight. According to another legend that they report, and many other historic sources, that Dinocrates was the architect of big Alexander, wanted to make arts in the Athos mountains and give him the characteristic of the place of Macedonian king, that would hold in his hand a big city with a lot of people, and the other hand would have a kind of honor till the sea, a big river with a lot of waters. That wasn't something that Alexander accepted, and even though he ordered to leave Mount Athos alone, because he didn't want to give it to his afterwards, people come afterwards, his children and grandchildren, a second thing against after what the Xerxes was given to his own children. And that meant that with the bridge in the narrow place that we have the beginning of the peninsula between the two bays of Ierisho and Sigiriku Bay, where the King Xerxes opened to have his ships come through from one sea to the other, so that he would remove, he would avoid the very big waves in Ancrotho, in the last place of Athos, in the south beginning of the peninsula. So he also had in mind that he had the recent destruction of the fleet of Mardonius, who was doing the first fight of the Persians and against Greece, 493 BC. Some historicals though don't believe that this was a true fact, and they say that Xerxes dragged his whole fleet above the soil from one place of the sea to the other. The story of the Athos remains dark, and in the next years too. The sources say about a lot of other small cities that were here, just as Sani, Thissos, Cleone, Dion, Olophyxos, Acrothoi, Apollonia. But it is not yet found that this was a true fact, but and that this was their position. We also know that that older than that, there were this place was very rich, and they should have been abandoned when they started coming to Mount Athos, is its new residents, which were the monks. Monks in Mount Athos. To become a monk is to renounce the world around you and to confine yourself in deserted places for the salvation of your soul, and as soon as possible to be united with God. In Christianity, there weren't, but even though there weren't before that other things like that, other facts like that, that was found at the beginning of the 4th century as a reaction to the social corruption of that period. Especially Christianity was formed during the persecutions of the three first centuries against the church, and under the influence of Holy Gospel preaching, or against the Judaist monk, and the spirit of the modern Greek period and philosophy. The ideals of being a monk is to be virgin, not to have anything under your name, and to obey, and that is accomplished by continuous bodily and soul exercise, and completely devotion to God. The first monastic centers that appeared and have the monk fact and the monk living was in Egypt, in Syria, and Minor Asia, and a little later to Palestine and Constantinople. From all these places, who were, of course, dissolved by the times, And we have the only places that were saved till now, and the monasteries and monks, or destroyed monasteries. They are in in other places, but in Mount Athos, we have a big monastic center, which is afterwards, after the previous ones, and was and still is the Acropolis of Orthodoxy, and the first and biggest fights and the biggest winnings of a person against evil, and that happens in the East Christianity. According to the tradition, Theotokos, Mother of God, with John the Evangelist, he was sailing through Athos when they went to visit Lazarus in Cyprus. So they went to the port there, because it was a very big where there were big waves into the sea, and they stopped at the place that today is the Iberos monastery. Then Mother Mary stopped for a while, and she was admiring the beautiful places, and so she asked her son to give her this place, this whole mountain, as a gift, even though that the mountain's residents were worshipping idols from the one place to the other place. The whole mountain was full of residents who were worshipping the idols. Then a big voice was heard, and it was saying, it was the voice of the God saying, even as you ask this place and this mountain and this garden as a paradise, you see it as a paradise for to save people who want to save their souls, and it is yours, Mother. God was saying to his mother. So the Holy Mountain was given as a gift and a garden to Mother Mary. It is suitable for people to live there, and it is a place where the monks can have some exercise in their spiritual souls. So Mount Athos has gathered a lot of monks, even from the very first years of Byzantium, who were coming from all the places of the empire. That was justified in this area, because all the people wanted to go there and become monks. So the whole peninsula of Mount Athos in the after Byzantine period was still full of monks, even in the early Byzantine and the after Byzantine period. This name was given by the people, but it was surely gratified and given especially from a big seal that Emperor Constantine the Ninth of the Gladiator gave to the mountain of Athos in the middle of 11th century. The year that the first monks were resident in Mount Athos isn't known yet, but we also know that in that place a lot of the monking life was developed in a great situation. The information that are still here are still written about this matter, and especially before 9th century are just a few, but most of them are based to different traditions and legends. The monks of Mount Athos give the foundation of their monasteries, of some of their monasteries, to Constantine the Great, who said that he destroyed by Julian the bad emperor, who was violating everything, and it was built again by Theodosius the Great and Pulcheria. That is something that we may assume that surely happened, as long as that monks were in Mount Athos earlier than 7th century. The beginning and the expanding of Athonic monking, and beside the general reasons are found in the three historical reasons. First, in the corruption of small area cities who were near Mount Athos, which had as a result that this place would remain desert, and so was suitable to lure and to have some people there who wanted to become monks, and to the appearance and the appearance of new enemies against the empire. Then these enemies were the Arabs in the east areas, in the east continent, which had as a result the resolving of big monastic center in the east areas, and the monks who wanted to leave these areas, the east places, because Arabs soon came there and started to kill the monks, and they couldn't stay there more than that and continue their exercise. And the third reason is that some of the empires of the Byzantium had a very hostile situation, and the people who lived in Constantinople, and especially at the time of iconoclasts, had a very big hatred against the monks and the monking generally as a way of life. From the 9th century, as we also said, in Mount Athos, there is the history as monastic center, and is written as that. That we can see from the gathering of 843, which Empress Theodora called, and to fix again the position of the icons in the lives of people and the church. In this area, in this period, we have the names of two very important people in Mount Athos, the monks Peter the Athonite and Euthemius from Thessalonica. Those two monks were the representatives of two different monking facts, which was, the first was the hermetism, which means that people stay away from everybody so that they become hermits. and the second was Lyricism. So that we have these facts coming into Athos, and we have a very important center of banking according to the prototypes of the East. All the monasteries we were near or inside Constantinople. At the end, we have a big document which is written by the Emperor Basilius I in the year 885, which has written that only monks could live in Mount Athos, and so that all the shepherds and other worldly people who are near Mount Athos, the garden of Panagia, of Mother Mary, would be removed, and only monks and hermits could live in Mount Athos. Now, if we want to find the root of the truly made monastic life in Mount Athos, it is not possible to end in any of certain conclusions. We can also have in mind that in other monastic centers we have the monastic type of Mount Athos, and had the same evolution in Mount Athos as in other monastic centers. That means that it went through three stadiums: the asceticism, to being public, all the other things being public, and to live all together into a very small time place. So first, in the beginning of the peninsula, there were some hermit monks who went to live there, leaving all the other, avoiding all the other raids, especially the Saracian pirates who went there and destroying the whole place. These monks, after that, they left this area and moved for more safety inside the Mount Athos and in the big mountain tops, and the places that weren't possibly be found by the Thracian pirates, because they were killing everyone who could find in front of them. Afterwards, the monks were gathered in lavres. Lavres is places specially for this reason, places that a lot of people could go and monk there, and they have as prototype the older monking places of Palestine. That means groups of monks in some organization. From these, two of us are known: Clemendos, near the monastic of Ibiros, and the one called the Cathedral of the elders, above the hill of Zygos, which was the most important one. The third phase of being in a monastery, it is presented through the time of 9th century, with the first monk who did that was John, who was the president of Kalvos monastery near Ierisson. In the Mount Athos, we have started to have the building of the great Lavra monastery from Athanasius. The monks of the cathedral of the elderly were gathered in the central church for the common worship of God, while the elderly from all the others for the other cells were making gatherings when it was necessary. That was happening for 3 times a year. That means in the feast of Passover, the dormitory of Mother of God, and at Christmas. So at that time they had all these monks together to gather for some common matters under the presidency of the first leader, the first monk. This place was verified by a seal of Romanos the first of Lekapinos, 934, and it's called the Ancient, which means that there was a lot of time before that, and surely after the 9th century, behind and in front of the 9th century. The 10th century, as we also see, there were new monasteries in Mount Athos who took with them a lot of monks, which had a result to have less number of monks in the cathedral of the elderly, and to have it not to have any zenith in that place at that time, and in a few while it was completely dissolved. In front of these new facts, the first of the leaders was forced to remove his cathedral inside the center of the peninsula, and it's called Messi, and it was called like this, and afterwards they called her Caries, and that name still till today. The main founder of the monastic lives in Mount Athos is the friend and confessor of the Emperor Nikephoros Phokas, which was called Saint Athanasius Athonitis, who made it before 6,000 years, almost 963. And the famous monastery of Great Lavra was built there at that time. Then the wooden cabins were replaced by big buildings who were made of stone, and the hermetic life from a life which was made as a group, and became a fact that this life was a group and it was organized completely. That was a new beginning. Who was the reason for other monks and other people who were living there to refuse being with them, and the Lavriotic the Lavriotan people there, who were monks, went against Athanasius, and they were moved from purely ideological motives, and the same strong personality monk Paul Syropotaminos in was the main monk, the very important monk who was against Saint Athanasius Athanidis' facts and beliefs. That noble Byzantine understood that the exercise with the most stricted faith in the desert, to leaving this place and to being an hermit, and being a hermit is the most strict and important phase, to be in wilderness, in continuous running, and the perfect isolation of the person from the world. That was he was devoted against the action of the big things. On the contrary, Athanasius accepted the big respect he had and his many virtues. He was a man with a bigger spirit and a more clever spirit, and he could also be a person who could rule the Mount Athos, and he was using beside the isolation in action, and he was also using the social living of the monks. So representing these theories by these two men, it was also necessary, it was also known that they could have a fight between them. There would be a fight between them. After that, Paul left for Thessaloniki with the other monks, with the purpose of saying the whole thing to John Chemiskis against the Athanite monk, Athanasius Athanidis, that surely brought luxury and dissolved the ancient types and the holiness of the place. Then the emperor, as it was physical, it was also natural that with the decisions that he took was in favorite of luxury, and that he dissolved the ancient types and the holiness of the place. Then the emperor sent in Athos the monk Ephemius Southitis to conduct some evidence, to conduct some foundings and some questions as in Athanasius, and at the end he recognized the whole rights of the big monasteries according to Athanasius' beliefs. These decisions were also stood up by the real ruling of which today we have in the first typical of Mount Athos 971 to 72, which is still the most important and most basic rule that governs the Athos. the upper mountains. So, having in mind that all these about being a monk, Athanasius moved other monks who were living there, and they were hermits, and they came into some special cells. Between them were people from Georgia, Armenians, and Latins. The last one, though, with his own movement, they found the monastery of Theotokos the Amalphinon near the Morphotou and at Bay in the north of Lavras. That monastery took its name from the people who were living in Constantinople, Amalfi, in down parts of Italy, and who was holding it with its need, and that place became a desert because of the hostile position of the Orthodox against the Latins, and today we only have its spectacular tower. Besides the monastery of Lavras, that we have also said about, in the 10th century there were found another two monasteries called Vatopedion and Ivira. So and a lot of other smaller ones were found too, as the Chiariou, Philotheu, and Xenophontos, and others that today we only know their names. In the 11th century, after being a monk, the monastic life was gathered and found holy in Mount Athos. A lot of other monasteries have been found and reached the number of 180, even though it was big cells and not monasteries in their today presentation. But from the end of this century, and especially in the years of Emperor Alexius the First of the Comnens, the biggest success of the Othonic monking was destroyed, and a lot of pirate treasures were doing some bad to the monks also. And from those, a lot of monasteries were destroyed or have done a lot of damage to them. According to this era, there were also shepherds from Vlachia who made the lives and the secrecy and being quiet in the Mount Athos. They made some furious things, the Vlachian shepherds, and according to this fact, we also have a document with a seal from Alexius, which among these things he said that in Mount Athos there is no way that a woman could enter. He forbid it. In the 12th century, we have the foundation of new monasteries, while they were erected in some other in the cells of some other monasteries. According besides the Greek, there are a lot of besides the Greeks, a lot of other monks come here to being a monk in Athos, and some of them are Iverus, Latins, Serbians, and Russians, who are completely united together with the only common thing, which is Orthodoxy. The next 13th century, the emperor in the next 13th century, when we have the era of Latinocracy, 1204, 1261, the Saint Athos was suffering from not only that, but all the empireship also. They were suffering from the Frangiscan raids, from the ones that we got rid of after the taking of Constantinople from the Paleologos. In those years, they promised. In those years, these were under the supervision of the commander of the state of Saloniki, and the monks who accepted a lot of pressures to get away from to be against we were against the coming together of the two churches, of being the two churches as one, the east and west, which were continuing unfortunately after Emperor Michael the Eighth or the Patriarch John Vekos, who were also people who wanted the union of the two churches, even though it is said that in their try to make Latins who were made after their try to make the monks as Latins, and a lot of persecution happened in the Mount Athos, and it was the result was that the places of a lot of buildings, were built. After that, they said that they tried to make the monks as Latins, and they tried several
του διαφυλακτήνε των τόπων τούτων και τους Αγίους και τους Σεβασμίους Ναούς, τον Αγίης Πατρόσιμων Νικολάου Αρχιεπισκόπου Μύρων της Λυκίας του Θαυματουργού και του Οσίου και Θεοφόρου Πατρόσιμων Ευθυμίου του Μεγάλου, από παντός ανιερό συναντήματος και λυπηρό είδος κάμπης ερησίδης ακρίτους και των ομοίων τούτης και πανός θωροποιού και λιμανικού πράγματος, ενσκότη διαφορευμένου και υπερηγίας και σωτηρίας ψυχής και σώματος, των δούλων του Θεού, των καλλιεργίων Θεούντων.
From the Mount Athos monasteries. Sotiris Kavras, archaeologist. In the 11th century, since the whole monastic life in the Oros was established, we have a lot of monasteries built, and they reached the number of 180. Even though there were more than big cells than monasteries themselves in the today situation. But in the years of the Emperor Alexius the First of the Comnens, we have not so many people in the Athonic monasteries. We have not many monks because a lot of pirates had piratic invasions in the Mount Athos, and a lot of monasteries were destroyed, and a lot of monasteries had big situations and big problems, so we don't have a lot of monks going into the monasteries at that time. Even at that time, a lot of shepherds from Blachia came into the Mount Athos, and they put the quietness and the monastic life out of order. According to this fact, this situation, we have a document which is sealed by the golden seal of Alexius, and among other things, he has put an end to the entrance of the female people into the Mount Athos. From the 12th century, we have not many new monasteries built, but we have more cells built in the already built monasteries. Besides the Greek monks, we have some other monks coming from other nations, as Iberian monks, Latins, Serbians, and Russians, who are connected with the common element of orthodoxy altogether. In the 13th century, when we have the period of Latino invasion in the Greek situation in the Byzantium in 1204-1261, in the Mount Athos was in suffering, as the whole empressy was, from the invasions of the Franks, which only stopped after the Constantinople was relieved and regained from the Paleologus people, from the Paleologus emperors. In this year, we have all these monasteries be under the commander of the state of Thessalonica, and the monks from Mount Athos were under a lot of pressures to take and to seal and sign the unification of the two churches, the east one and the west one. Those enforcements though were unfortunately go on after that, and in the years of the Emperor Michael VIII and Patriarch John the Vecchius, who were both people who wanted the two churches united. We also have to say that in their effort to make the monks become Latins, they had a lot of terrible evacuations and a lot of terrible destructions and a lot of terrible bad situations that they gave to the monks in their effort to make them Latins, and a lot of situations against the Mount Athos, but they had the result of that thing was the destruction of a lot of buildings and the murders of a lot of monks from Athens in the Protatos and in the monasteries of Vatopedion, Zographos, and other places. But after the death of Michael, the monasteries become to know a new civilization, a new better years, and because the errors of the throne had a very good situation against the monks of Mount Athos. They wanted them to prosper, and they were good to the monks. And especially when the son and heir of the throne was Andronicus II, who was against the unification of the two churches. The only dark side in his kingdom was the awful invasion of the Catalan pirates, which he used as emperor himself. He used as Mistaforian, as people, as army who was paid to do their job. Besides that, all the other areas of the empressy came to Mount Athos, which they forced. They slaughtered the monks. They burnt monasteries, and leaving, they took with them a lot of the priceless treasures that Mount Athos has. So the number of the monasteries was reduced to 25, which of them only 19 are saved by today. In the correction of all damages, except Andronicus, we have a lot of help from other emperors of Constantinople and Trapezundas. We also have that this period is coincided with the big blossom of the Serbian nation, and a lot of Serbian rulers give a lot of donations to the monasteries of Mount Athos, and especially in Hilandaris, and which in this place they were living, and they still do, as co-livers, co-inhabitants to them. Besides that, we have a lot of Serbian monks coming in Mount Athos, as all we said in the earlier eras. So we have here a lot of monasteries built, not as monasteries but big cells, as continuations of the monasteries, and they are built, a lot of them, and a lot of them become monasteries themselves. So we have a lot of unification of a lot of monasteries altogether. After the 15th century, the Mount Athos has one of his best and peaceful eras of its life. After it's all destructive situations that happened to that place. The monks from Mount Athos still want to believe and still resist with a lot of fanatism against the unification of the two churches, and besides that, they also fight for orthodoxy. So after the capture of Thessalonica 1430, and Constantinople 1453. The Mount Athos is subjected to the Turks, as all the nation did. The monks in Mount Athos tried to retain good relationships with the sultans, so for the very first moment they became slaves to the Murad II. They didn't fought against him, and the men who conquered Thessalonica. In return, he says that they can have the properties of the monasteries, which later is verified by Muhammad II, the conqueror, who conquered Thessalonica, who conquered Constantinople. So we have, for some reason, the independence on Mount Athos, and in the Sultanic documents, we have it written as the land from which day and night it is blessed the name of the God, and as refugee of the poor and strangers. At this time, we have a relative prosperity of the poor people. You have a relative prosperity there that was continued in the 16th century. One sample of this was the building of the monastery Stavronikita in the middle of the century, in which we have the number of the today Athonic monasteries completed. Even in those years, and after that, after the conquering of Serbia from the Czechs, we have in the Athos a lot of Serbian monks, as a result, for a lot of times we have in the position of the first of the Mount Athos monk. We have a lot of Serbian there. The big taxes and the takings of the fields from the Turkish authorities created a lot of economic crisis in the monasteries. That became the reason to have this special, strange kind of life that happens in the Mount Athos, and began to be fixed and generalized slowly by slowly in some monasteries, and to be generalized in the beginnings of the 18th century. This new way of monastic living can be someone can be said that was fixed as a solution of need in those difficult days of Athos. So, for the first of monks who replaced the monastery, some kind of few monks there who would just like the first in the careers. We have 4 guardians there. At the same time, we have the number of the monks decreasing, as a result. We have a lot of a few people coming in the monasteries, and we have a lot of a few people staying in the monasteries. Besides for the very first time from this era, we have started to fix the life of the monk, and so that the first huts in Mount Athos were built, that also exist today. The protectors and the donors of the Holy Mountain of Athos are, in all those difficult times, are proven to be the rulers of the places who were in near the Donavas River in Bulgaria and Moldavlechia, and a lot of Tsars of Russia, as long as a lot of patriarchs and pious Christians. At the same time, we are allowed to the Athonic monks to visit for a long time, for sometimes the monasteries over there, and a lot of this above country has to be a lot of those monks from Mount Athos are verified, are allowed for a long time to take the Holy Cross and take it to those places for all the Christians to be pious with them. And they also can take some pieces of the holy relics, and in that way people were gathered to see what he had to show them. And we have in this way the solution of gathering the money needed for those monasteries. We also have to say here that the spiritual situation in Mount Athos and the positive η Ανική αυτή τη μαγνητογόνηση τελειώσει στο 657 και αρχινά από το 657 και μετά. We also have to report that the spiritual situation in Mount Athos and its positive giving and co-helping in our nation who was under the Turks in all the era of all those years of the Turkish invasion, especially in the 17th and 18th century, that became the spiritual center of the Greeks and the home of the philosophical people and the teachers of the nation, and gave to our nation spiritual men, spiritual patriarchs, people who knew a lot of who had a lot of education, some bishops, priests, teachers, and teachers who were monks also. And it's very easy for someone to think that how necessary were those people in that era, and because they wanted to give strength to the Greeks and to keep them stable in their traditions that they had from the fathers, and give them strength in their faith and fixing and preparing the resurrection of the Greek people. More of them was in the building. More of them was doing in the building and the foundation and the putting in work of the big monastery of Vatopedion of Athoniados Academy, where a lot of big and very known people taught there, as Eugenius Vougaris, Athanasius Parias and Cosmas Etelos, Zerzulis, and a lot of others. Even though from from the monk of Cosmas Etelos, Cosmas Etelos founded a Greek typography place in Lavra, and he made it here. And in the same time, he tried to give out a book from in the mountain, and he gave it to the people, the Greek people who were under the Turks, but it was destroyed after the revolution. We say that it was the typography place with the machines that was destroyed after the revolution. The spiritual evaluation of Mount Athos and its gathering and its progress generally, especially spiritual progress, stopped when the Greek Revolution started in 1821. That also gave a lot of power in the monks of Mount Athos, who wanted to fight in the Greek Revolution themselves. So the monasteries accept from their help in the preparation of big revolution. We have here a lot of other ways that they spiritually and mentally and completely helped in a lot of other ways in the big revolution. A lot of monks left from Mount Athos and went when the Turkish soldiers went to live there. So even to avoid the barbarism and the slaughter of the Turks, or to fight against the Turks, taking off their gowns, their black gowns, and taking the sword with the other Greeks themselves. After 10 years, they returned to their places of their monastic places and started again the work of rebuilding and reuniting and fixing the monasteries. So the mountain enters a new progress, a new era of progress, and that continues until today.